Before I turn this over to Edith Macra, our Director of Environmental Initiatives at the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, I just want to say again, a very good morning and a very warm good morning to you all. My name is Kevin Burns. I'm the Chairman of the Executive Board at the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus and Chairperson of the Environment Committee and Energy Subcommittee at the caucus. It's my pleasure to welcome you today to this important discussion regarding CPRG, our pollution reduction grant opportunities throughout the region. We have some extraordinary speakers presenting information for all of yours benefit, and I'm confident that we'll all leave this meeting better informed and better inspired to move forward. So with that, let me turn it over to my friend and colleague, Edith Macra. Edith, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I am calling this meeting dynamic because the CPRG, or the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant opportunity, is super exciting, almost dizzying in terms of the opportunities and in terms of the pace and the need for collaboration. So is the dialogue that is surrounding this. So let me start the slides here. Is my screen displaying properly?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so the purpose of this meeting today is to just give a little background on CPRG for those who have not yet heard about it. It's still a very confusing program. And then the main reason for the dialogue today is just to foster regional collaboration for competitiveness in terms of securing, I would say, more than our fair share as a region of climate pollution reduction grant implementation funding. So there is, and I'll go through the process, there is no one here that is going to be submitting the winning project for the region. There is no one here that will say that one will go forward or not. But by having a conversation with everyone who's a stakeholder and getting everyone's ideas, we have an opportunity to just have a dialogue and reflect back to each other what those projects look like and see if we can't foster collaboration, cooperation, find idea partners and cooperators who can work on the really good ideas, and then perhaps just reflect on how some of the project ideas may look in comparison to some of the other ones. So it's only to have a dialogue, and if you will consider this conversation and this round robin of project ideas merely a mirror reflecting back on some of the conversations and some of the ideas that are coming in. So we do have a good crowd today, and I do want to point out that the Environment Committee is comprised of the leadership of municipalities, and it's a voluntary participation. So we have a lot of mayors, trustees, aldermen, staff from municipalities, as well as citizen commissioners who work in sustainability environment commissioners. You may identify yourself so if you'd like on your Zoom name, but we also invited all of our friends. So there are organizations that are not municipal that are often partner with us and may contribute really good ideas. So that who is all on the call today. And thank you all for being here. We are going to get through a little bit of a presentation. I'll start with an overview of what CPRG is about. And then we're going to have a little conversation about how we got these project ideas here that we're talking about today, the process for calling for project ideas for implementation. And then we're going to have just a short round robin of some of the leading projects that have come in for consideration in that call for project ideas, as well as some that are very, very formative, or some we're just going to let you in on some of the conversations from some of the key partners. We will be using Mentimeter for feedback on those projects, and it's just a matter of getting a temperature in the Zoom room, if you will. So there is the Menti. I hope most of you have used Menti, but it's a really good way to get some interactive feedback. Apologies in advance if it doesn't go super smoothly. I'm operating that, and I'm not that good at the clicking around, but we're going to do our best. So there is a Menti. You go to menti.com, and when you go there, it'll ask you to enter a code, and then you'll see the same slides that I'm showing at the end of each speaker. Project ideas, there are 5 that we'll get some feedback on, and then you have a chance to vote, and it works in real time. So while we're talking, you may want to get to that menti.com, and Cheryl, I believe you put that in the chat, correct?
Yes.
And then as time permits, we'll have a opportunity for each speaker, each presenter to grab some questions live or in chat as we're able, and then we will have a conversation or discussion with any ideas that we haven't yet heard about, or overall concerns or overall observations for making these some really powerful submissions from our region. So with that, we're ready to proceed. Okay, so climate pollution reduction grant is it's the largest investment in climate action in U.S. history. It's a massive program, and it's on a very, very short time frame. So the way I like to describe it, and our friends from US EPA are on the call here, but this is my description of it, is there's a vast amount of investment coming, $4.6 billion. And EPA also needs to create a target and a framework for what that funding will be about. So that's the planning component of it. So the two are married together and all on a very, very short timeline, as you'll see. So the overall, again, not speaking for EPA, and we're not making the grant decisions, but as partners and collaborators on the CPRG project for the Chicago Metropolitan Statistical Area, we know that EPA's CPRG objectives are to develop ambitious plans to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and other harmful pollutants. They are looking for their investments to fund transformative, large-scale greenhouse gas reduction policies, programs, and capital projects or investments. And there is a strong preference for benefiting low and disadvantaged communities. And I'll show that detail a little bit. So the phase one planning, the Chicago MSA, if you will, Metropolitan Statistical Area, is one of the many 67, I believe, largest metropolitan statistical areas in the US that are getting a planning grant. So each MSA gets $1 million in 4 years for a planning phase. And I'll go into details on that. All of the states were offered money, and the ones in yellow on the map accepted the funding. So you can see there's some MSAs working independently of their states. In Illinois, Illinois is developing a plan that is being led by Illinois EPA, and the Chicago MSA is developing a plan as well. The EPA has given us a framework for required plan elements, stakeholder engagement, greenhouse gas inventory projections, target setting, the Justice 40 initiative, which is the disadvantaged communities, and other requirements. The timeline is ambitious, dynamic. So the Priority Climate Action Plan is due March 1st. There is, and while it seems like that's coming together very, very quickly, and there may not be as much of a robust stakeholder engagement or as comprehensive as we would like, do not fear. Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, in their name, the planning agency is going to be taking on the comprehensive climate action plan with a longer trajectory for summer of 2025. And that has some longer term benefits for engagement and a deeper dive. Priority Climate Action Plan is due March 1st, and it's a very high level overview of what our region needs to do. And there's some ongoing reporting into 2027. So in developing the PCAP, which is the Mayor's Caucus part of this project, is the desire for the PCAP is to enable our region to effectively and collaboratively compete for CPRG Phase 2 implementation funds. That's the purpose of the plan. It also, the PCAP provides the strategies and the goals against which all of the project submissions need to target, if you will. So the strategies need to be identified in the PCAP to be eligible. And the intention is that our PCAP is going to be broadly inclusive. And one of the great benefits that we have in our region is that we have a climate action plan. Okay. We have a climate action plan that was completed, the one that we did in 2021. So our plan will draw heavily from that plan, but it won't stop there. It does give us something to all react to and have something on paper to discuss. So most of you on the Environment Committee know that we have a climate action plan that was done in 2021, well ahead of any knowledge of the CPRG even being conceived. So that plan was done, and the unique part of the plan is that it was tailored for, it took all of the regional greenhouse gas emission sources. It also covers adaptation, and it targets disadvantaged communities, or has equity considerations in it. But the filter on the plan is that it was designed for municipal empowerment because of who we are and because of who participated. We have 170 organizations participating, 53 municipalities. It's really designed for municipal action. And if you look at the bottom of the list of strategies there, objectives, excuse me, these are high-level objectives for what's in the plan, the mitigation portion of the plan. The lead, encourage, and enact are the municipal levers. We're going to remove some of those filters as we move into the PCAP, because there's going to be other organizations with regional authorities. And just an example, we have Metra on the call with us today. And so when you look at the reduced vehicle miles traveled, our current plan would say something like, encourage participation or encourage use of transit and active transportation. With Metra at the table, we don't have to say encourage. It can be, invest in transit and active transportation. So that's how the PCAP will differ from the current climate action plan for the Chicago region. Because of the need for transformative projects that reduce emissions in the period of time of the grant, which is 5 years, quickly, we need to see some really high-level emissions reductions. So for that reason, the existing objectives that are in the climate action plan for the Chicago region that I just grayed out are not demonstrating high emissions reductions. So it doesn't mean that they couldn't be eligible. It's probably not going to be competitive. And I understand the waste folks are not happy about that. And the waste, before the wastewater folks who are on this call worry about that, we understand that there's different types of emissions, but that's where the focus is on energy sources. And that's where you'll see some overlap there. So you can take some time and look at the plan to see what's in there for right now, but that's where you're going to see the biggest emissions reductions. And in the plan, each objective is modeled. This was modeled using the 2015 greenhouse gas inventory for the Chicago region and a tool that is known as CURB, which was provided by the World Bank and the Global Covenant of Mayors to the Metropolitan Mayors Caucus and our project team that included NOAA and CMAP and other partners. So we modeled everything, and the bigger and fatter the wedge that you're seeing here for decarbonized energy sources, the greater the potential for emissions reductions. Again, it doesn't mean that only the projects from the fattest wedges will be selected, but these are going to be a consideration, and we have to demonstrate emissions reductions. So this is existing, and I'm not going to get into too many details on that. I'm just pointing out decarbonized transportation is another wedge. So you're looking at more than one. And you'll see some of them, I'm calling them sample strategies now. So some of the strategies under each objective will carry forward, but this is currently what we're working with. And we're going to, again, take off some of the filters, and we're going to add some. This is part of the process that we're doing before March 1st. Okay, I'd be anxious for questions, but I'm just going to plow through there. So the other strong need here in preparing the PCAP and the comprehensive plan is under the Justice 40 initiative. It was a Biden administration executive order looking for a target of 40% of the benefits of certain federal investments to flow to communities identified as disadvantaged. And there are several tools. This one is the Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool, which looks at many, many factors and identifies target communities for investment. Again, doesn't mean that communities outside of these target areas can't benefit, but this is going to be a strong priority that benefits are flow to target disadvantaged communities. I'm also skipping a couple of slides just for brevity here to show you that the Chicago MSA, if you'll notice, we have 4 counties identified in Indiana that are part of the Chicago MSA, and also Kenosha County, DeKalb County, and Grundy County, which is not part of the CMAP MMC region. And unfortunately, we have strong relationships with the Rockford region. They're not part of our Chicago MSA. They will be covered by the state plan. So that's what the disadvantaged communities is about. So again, I'll wait till the end for questions, although I'm dying to find out if you guys understand that. The phase two, just to kind of move through this, because this is the main reason for the meeting today. So phase two implementation grants. Remember, the PCAP is the target under which these funds will be aimed, and looking for the strong emissions reductions aligned with what the region has expressed our priorities through our priority climate action plan. So the PCAP will be done March 1st. Competitive grants for CPRG phase two implementation are due April 1st. Yes, it's a crazy timeline. This is why we're talking as best as we can now and sharing what we have all together. And any jurisdiction, so for the Chicago MSA, your project idea can be included in the Chicago MSA PCAP. It could be included in the Illinois EPA PCAP, where we've got objectives ready to share. So you at least know what's coming on, but you're eligible for either. The timeline for that, there is a notice of intent. It is optional, but due just February 1st, which is right around the corner. The US EPA is looking for who's going to apply for planning purposes only. It's optional. We as a team are encouraging all of the partners to put that notice of intent in. It's a fairly easy thing to do, just so we have formal ideas or formal record of who's planning on applying. So that's an optional one. PCAP will have done for you March 1st, applications due April 1st, and then you've got 5 years to finish the project. So these are long-term, large projects. And this is everybody's either favorite or most feared slide. This is the way the funding is being broken out, anticipated to be spent by the US EPA. So the grants can be huge. So the smallest grant is a $2 million grant. And if you look at that bottom tier, $2 to $10 million grants, there's going to be 10 to 50 of those. As you go up to the $500 million grants, there's just going to be a handful of those. So there's a lot of ways you can spin this, and you can speculate how much per state, how many grants per MSA. I am not going to speculate, but it does really, when you look at that list, and the EPA has said this, they want collaboration. So they don't want us to compete against one another, and we want to make sure that our region has the very best opportunity to, to grab again more than our fair share of funds in the most competitive, effective way. And then to foster collaboration, again, there is no one, even though the MMC and CMAP are leading the PCAP and the CCAP, we are not leading on the project submission, but working together to collect ideas, and as a way of just finding out what people are thinking and to collect good ideas and foster collaboration and discussion. CMAP has created a survey. We had a webinar on December 18th for a more detailed discussion of what the CCAP is, and we had IEPA and the Northwest Indiana folks on the call. And we put out at that time a call for project ideas, and we've got some feedback on that. So that survey is open. You can still apply, put your ideas in there, again, only for the purposes of dialogue. And then Jesse Altman from CMAP, is there anything you want to add about the number or nature of the projects, or anything, if you don't mind me putting on the spot for a second?
No, it's okay, Edith. Yeah, no, we're getting results from all sorts of agencies and municipalities, kind of up and down the ladder. We would just really encourage you to submit your ideas, regardless of where you are in the process of thinking through them or planning for an application. It's useful for all of us just to understand what ideas are out there, so we can help connect people who have similar ideas, and so we can put together hopefully more collaborative, larger, and more competitive applications.
Thanks, Jesse. So it is from this list that we have invited all of you here, but we've invited 5 of those projects that have come into that survey and then have been identified through conversations to present today. So we're just going to have some of these are informal, so there may or may not be slides for them, but the idea is that each of the partners here who have developed these ideas or are developing these ideas would love a chance to kind of pitch their idea and answer any questions you have about it, and then find partners if it makes sense to do so. So if you find that you can fit with some of these projects or partner or have some great ideas to make it succeed. And then for each of the 5 key presenters, we're going to have a little bit of feedback, and we have that Menti poll. So we want to see what you all think of it. Again, not judging anything, just want to see what the group thinks and see if it's informative for other partners and for the folks presenting those ideas. So with that, let me pause on time check and chat. Take help from Cheryl, maybe, if there are any questions on the PCAP that I should be looking at.
I think we've answered everything in the chat. We did
Great.
find out that the Menti code is slightly different. It ends in 4011, and that is in
Oh.
the chat. And we also just added the CPRG email is how to apply for the notice of intent by February 1st.
Okay. And then I guess make sure you have the Menti code in there, because the slides are all wrong right now. I might try to change that, but the Menti code is 4011. And that's in the chat. Okay, so we're good to go with presenters, and everybody understands PCAP, CPRG. With that, let us turn it over to Dustin and the team from Metra. And if you would, please introduce yourself. I've been calling this meeting dynamic. I don't want to call it a bit fly by night, but we usually have a little bit more ability to introduce speakers. But thank you for all being so flexible. And if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and your team.
Of course. So today I'm going to be Grant Pursuits Vision Manager. And today with my team, we've got David Kralik, my manager, the department head of program planning and programming. And then we have Katie Dote. She is a government affairs member in our department, in our agency. And we may or may not have Sean Cronin joining us. He is the project manager here. He's wrapped up with a few operations needs right now. So thank you for inviting us here today. We're very excited to talk about our program to initiate zero emission train sets and to contract that very soon. So if you could go to the next slide, please. So Metra's goal here is to be ambitious and be the first passenger rail operator to put battery powered zero emission train sets into service. There are a few other options, particularly in the freight and mining industries across the globe. A couple here in the United States where battery-powered trains or locomotives have been used. But we would be perhaps the first in the United States if our timeline holds up and if we are able to secure funding to initiate phase 3 of our project. So this is a innovative solution to decarbonize the transportation sector in our region, and we really see this emerging technology as ready now for us to take on and put into our system. And at a big level, this technology, if it is proven in Chicago's weather extremes, if we can do it here, passenger rail operators across the country can do it anywhere. Lastly, I'll note that our project is shovel ready. Here we've got a few steps along the way, but we are right at the contract initiation phase. So hopefully within the next month or two, we can bring that to our board and provide a lot more information publicly. Okay, next slide, please. So I'm breaking down this project at a high level into 2 phases. Phase 1 is buying and fabricating the actual motive-powered units. These will be 16 units. They are what we consider married couples in the industry. So they do have to be coupled together as they operate. That means that we have 8 train sets to operate around the area when these are built and fabricated. Thankfully, due in large part to a CMAP grant last year, we do consider phase 1 fully funded. That's the design engineering phase, training, labor, and all that it takes to get these things fabricated and delivered to Metra. What we're asking for in the CPRG grant application will be another $120 million, and this will close the funding gap on phase 2 of our project. This will allow us to build 8 additional charging locations across the region and allow us to purchase 32 trailer cars. These are non-motive or unpowered vehicles that do have greater seating capacity than the 16 that we do have funded in phase one. And so that is our primary goal here today and with this application. Next slide, please. On its face, this project most directly correlates with MMC's decarbonized transportation goal. Primarily, this will allow us to increase the fleet, and doing that allows us to schedule additional trains, provide better options throughout the midday service periods, and to try and move towards our regional rail goal. All that would increase ridership, perhaps induce ridership, and decrease personal car trips. The train sets themselves will directly reduce or eliminate tailpipe emissions. And I'll note that the carbon output of charging a battery electric train would be lesser than burning diesel fuel. In addition to that, we have a couple other kind of high-level benefits that I'll note. This, of course, facilitates a transition to a low or no emissions vehicle type. The MMC plan is more focused on personal automobiles, but this project would also advance that for our transit vehicles. And lastly, the regional miles traveled by car, we would hope to reduce by adding additional service runs. So next slide, please. So why are we targeting this program and not the others out there? Well, this is really the best and perhaps only fit for funding our non-motive powered train sets. So last year, we were happy to secure a $170 million grant from the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Program that does fund the motive powered units. And that means that these train sets and the rest of the program are not eligible for CMAQ dollars. The EPA has a smaller grant program called DARA. It's the Diesel Emissions Reduction Act. And that program only offers up to $6 million per application. And these trailer cars themselves would not be eligible in that program. Perhaps the best other option would be the Rail Vehicle Replacement Program provided by FTA. However, that program does not allow us to grow the fleet. Any dollar secured by RVR requires retiring rail cars, and therefore we do not get to scale up our transit fleet and add additional train runs. Lastly, I'll note the RAISE grant and CRISI grant opportunities from USDOT and FRA, respectively. They are options. They really do not fit this program to purchase the trailer cars themselves quite so much. So we have looked at those programs, but this is a very unique opportunity for Metra to fully fund our full vision for this program through EPA's CPRG. Next slide, please. So what exactly does this look like? It would, if we are funded through CPRG, it would allow us to purchase the trailer cars, the non-motive powered cars that fit between the battery electric train sets. Those battery powered packs are only on the end units, so at the far end of the train, and adding in trailer cars in between would not only allow us to increase capacity on the train, but it would allow us to put those zero emission train sets into peak revenue service periods. So that's a lot of jargon, but essentially the small coupled train sets we have on the bottom left of the screen would not be sizable enough to put at the morning or afternoon rush periods. If we are able to secure the funds for the trailer cars, we could put these into our key peak periods of the day. In addition, we're currently looking at the Rock Island line for the initial operations of these train sets. But with additional trailer cars, that scales up our ability to service our passengers, and we would extend to 3 additional line segments noted on the slide. All of that is, of course, contingent upon securing the extra funds and adding in the requisite charging infrastructure. All right. So what our request boils down to is to have the MMC's climate action plan, updated plan, mention our project specifically. Any letters of support to show our regional collaboration, the value that Metro brings to all of our communities across the region would be very helpful. And we'd also appreciate any continued support or other channels of communication you can help us spread the word about this ambitious project. So with that, David and I will be able to take any questions that you might have. I see a couple came through on the chat.
There's a pretty good dialogue in the chat. I was going to say if looking both at time and should we take some questions here or should we move on?
Can I
David,
ask,
looks-
can I
if
ask
you
a
would-
quick question?
Yeah, please do. Edith and Cheryl just monitor so that we don't interrupt anyone else's presentation opportunity.
So I asked in the chat, but it wasn't yet answered. Would you be replacing all of the existing diesel engines? And then I want to add one more question.
Sure, to start with that, the 16 initial train set units we are purchasing, we would retire 16 of our 1970s era diesel locomotives. We do see this as additive to the fleet though, so we would want to continue looking at our options for additional procurements.
How many total engines do you have?
I believe we're up to almost 170 now. We just put a few new into service that are our cleanest diesel locomotives to date.
And then what do you aim to have when you expand?
Expanding the train set program would be requisite on these proving themselves in the operating environment. We also have to look at the kind of useful life of these battery cell packs, of the vehicles themselves. So we'd really want to thoroughly test and vet this technology with our initial purchases before expanding for additional purchases.
And then the 2 slides back, you had noted which lines you would plan to use these on. And it looks like you're not planning, yeah, right at the bottom there, 3 additional line segments. So you would just run the shorter trains on those little bits of those lines? Because I know that's not the full line for those.
Yes, that's correct. That is our kind of initial perspective at this point in time. A lot of this has to do with where we have yard facilities where we can park these trains to put them into service or charge them. So we've looked at these 3 line segments to offer the greatest kind of flexibility to our riders in those areas.
Okay, thank you.
Christy, do you want to chime in?
For just a quick question. So the Rock Island has been identified. Is that so for your proposal, are you specifically focusing on the Rock Island and proposing that that's going to be the test case? And so that's one question. And then just if you could also expand upon when you're implementing this initiative on the Rock Island line, how will you be ensuring redundancy so that there's not, problems with service?
Yeah, great questions. I'll take that latter question first. We always do have a redundancy plan or an option of additional locomotives parked at the ends and certain portions of our lines in the event that one train fails to operate. So we'll continue using that kind of operations method. And then for the expansion from the Rock Island line, currently we're looking at that as our first area to test these train sets for a lot of reasons. One of which is that area has amongst the highest burden of transit emissions in our region. You think of that interstate corridor plus the railroad corridor along that area. It also offers an opportunity to use our multiple rail yard facilities. We have one downtown, of course, at LaSalle where we could charge, one at Rock Island's primary maintenance shop at 47th Street, and then at Blue Island Yard. So that really provides us the best test case area within our system.
And then just as a point, please do look at what the what EJ communities are incorporated along that line too, to help foster, success with your initiative. I know in South Suburban Mayors and Managers geography, we have 30 of our 45 communities, many of which are served by Rock Island's lines. So hopefully that will be beneficial to you.
Absolutely. Thank you for that note.
Yeah, a shout out to David, your colleague, Dustin, who's answering all the questions on chat quite well. Nicely done.
Totally. I love that you guys came with a team and you're ready to
God, we need
do
an
that.
award.
Matt, pressure's on. You don't have a pit crew helping you out on the questions here. If we could, for the purposes of just giving everybody a chance to present, let's try the first, and thank you for putting your contact information there. Let's try the first Menti poll. And so this is, and some of you were early voting. So this project, we're going to use the same slide deck over. So is this showing properly? You guys can see this project could as a Menti poll.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay, great. So if you would go ahead and use the Menti code, is that correct then, Cheryl, that 4011?
Yes, the
Some of you-
4011 is the correct.
Okay, excellent. So if you would, I mean, is this pretty self-explanatory, but this project could be, question is transformative and to the far right if you strongly agree, to the far left if you strongly disagree. So the other questions be achievable in 5 years and reduce GHG emissions quickly. So please use vote on your device, your phone, laptop if you're doing that. And you can see the little counter there at the bottom. We're at 13 voters, so we'll give everybody a chance to get into this technology. And again, the only reason for voting is just to give feedback to the Metro team and to everyone else here. Yeah. "24 voters. I've got 60 people on the call. Are folks having problems with the technology? "29. Trends are looking pretty positive for the transformative, achievable, and effectively reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So I will go on to the next slide. Will the project likely benefit? Again, with your strongly disagree on the far left, strongly agree to the right. So we're looking at benefits to the disadvantaged communities, other communities, your community, and benefits for the region. So please vote. I'm not sure what those little colorful thumbs up means that are floating up from the lower left-hand corner of the screen, but fun to watch. We'll shoot for 30 responses per question. Okay, we're there. Good feedback, thank you. And then project competitiveness. Again, I don't know why I don't have a explanation on the upright axes. Innovative, not otherwise fundable, cost-effective, and collaborative.
While Edith takes a sip of water, this is amazing to see. I've been working to try and get our region to electrify public transit for 4 or 5 years now. And CTA has been so woefully behind, and it's just great to see Metra moving forward. Pace has been doing well, but it's easier with buses than with trains, so great to see this.
Thank you for that feedback. Okay, 2 more quick clicks and I'll move on to the next and last slide. Okay, so last vote here, just a general stoplight. Should this be one of our regional CPRG projects?
There should be some collaboration added to the project, however, perhaps with the vehicle miles traveled reduction, working with some of the other transit agencies to get people to these corridors or something. Because right now it's solely a Metro project, and you said collaboration was a big element.
Excellent. Okay, so with 32, thank you all for voting, and it sounds like everyone got that figured out. So we can go on to the next project, and I'm going to turn it over to, and then Dustin, if you would, contact information in the chat so people can find you. So the next project, and again, Reggie, you're going to have to introduce yourself, if you would. Reggie Greenwood, who's got an okay, I'll let you talk through your project idea here. And Cheryl has your slides for you. Reggie, are you ready to present?
Sorry, I was on mute. How many
Okay,
times
great.
have we heard that? Good morning. I'm Reggie Greenwood. I'm the director of the Supply Chain Innovation Center at Governor State University and still director of the Chicago Southland Economic Development Corporation. Governor State University recently received a $1 million planning grant from the National Science Foundation to advance something, to put together a program called Advancing Smart Logistics. This project began maybe 6 months ago. This is an overview of the overall project. The idea is to transform the delivery of the last mile and mid-mile items, logistics, by electrifying those fleets and making them smart. There are several projects that we're particularly focusing on in doing this work. Again, I'm going to go through all 3 of them, although that's not what we're specifically talking about for this application. But just to make it clear, I'll mention all 3. One is the last mile delivery, is delivering the electrification of delivering product by either electric bikes or drones or other electrified delivery mechanisms to the community itself. Then we have a mid-mile delivery, which is both particularly delivering product by electric vertical takeoff and landing drones, which are bigger drones that can carry maybe 2,000 pounds. The idea behind that is the delivery from warehouse to warehouse or from intermodal operation to intermodal operation. Both of those projects are coming more rapidly than I'm sure most of us think about, but they're still not ready to be deployed at scale for several years. There are a test case being done by Amazon for last mile delivery. There are several eVTOL test projects being looked at in Dallas and in Florida, but those projects are, anyway, we're going to work on that. Our idea is to develop a pilot testing facilities around the state to help companies promote that technology for mid and last mile delivery. The third project that we're working on is farther along. It is the idea of electrifying the mid-mile freight delivery. Mid-mile as opposed to first mile. First mile is the idea of delivering, electrifying large trucking movements from one state to the next. What we've decided to focus on, because of the unique logistics assets here in Chicago, is the mid-mile freight delivery or electrifying the mid-mile truck delivery. This would be potential. Next slide, please. So this is the idea of moving trucks around intermodal operations. And given where we are, we probably all know intermodal are large collections of rail lines that are organized in many of our communities, where large diesel engines, diesel trucks come into these intermodal operations and idle there and stay there as they wait to move a container to a rail line or pick a container from a rail line. The other related idea, many of these intermodal operations then will move containers to a nearby distribution center. And then at that distribution center, containers are often moved around these large facilities. Again, all those movements are being done by large diesel engines, creating substantial diesel pollution in areas. So what we're working on is this. Next slide, please. So what we're proposing to do is to develop testing facilities for those specific operations to be able to allow companies to develop the technology and deploy it in our region. You may or may not know this, but there is a term called terminal tractor, which is currently primarily a diesel tractor that makes the moves I just talked about. There are companies now developing an electrified version of that. One is in St. Louis, one's in California. And these tractors are road ready, but they can only go up to 20 miles per hour. They're not designed to go long distances. They're too slow and don't have the capacity. But they can move product around intermodal operations, and they can move product to a nearby distribution center. The biggest example is in Joliet, a large Walmart, 2 million, 3 million square feet is a half a mile away. That is the type of movement that could be moved by an electrified truck from that intermodal operation to the big Walmart facility. Although these trucks are developed, they're not being deployed rapidly yet because there are many decisions that have to be made about the type of communication structure, the way the trucks move, the way they charge, how do they integrate themselves in the operations of intermodals or around distribution centers. One of the related ideas to make them more effective is to use this electrification to make these trucks smart, as in they could be either autonomous or semi-autonomous. There are definitely many situations where you could have a remote driver driving the truck and thereby being able to handle multiple trucks being moved by the same time, or they could become completely autonomous. We began this work maybe 2 years ago with a grant from the EDA, where we developed a business plan for that concept to develop those testing facilities. We use that EDA grant as part of this NSF grant that we're involved in. So what we're now excited about is the opportunity for this funding mechanism that could kick this project off, that would be able to make it even more successful for our NS application, which will be due the end of 2024. So there is a substantial opportunity for environmental benefit to Justice 40 areas because, as probably most of us know, many intermodal operations and many distribution centers are located in Justice 40 areas where they bear the brunt of pollution coming from diesel engine trucks that are moving around these centers and moving between one center and the next. So what we're proposing to do is to develop a pilot testing facility for companies to come be able to utilize a quote incubator testing facility for a variety of companies, for the software, for the trucks, and for the operations of diesel distribution centers to evaluate these projects and to be able to develop the technology to deploy them. They would be partnering with 2 colleges in the Chicago area, the University of Illinois at Chicago and the Urban Center Transportation would be part of this, along with me at the Supply Chain Innovation Center. We have already developed partnerships, tentative partnerships with many companies in the region, many distribution centers, many development companies. So we believe that this is an opportunity to put this pilot testing facility up to demonstrate the efficacy of applying this technology in our region that would allow it to be deployed rapidly. And I did some estimations of the environmental impact of that, which is substantial. The amount of money we're asking for, it depends on who our partner is. The Chicago International Port wants to be the site for the testing facility. They've offered us 15 acres of land. That has all kinds of benefits to do some collaboration with the port. There's also an opportunity to do there's other opportunities where we actually put the facility. We're in discussions with several people. So just to summarize, we're in the neighborhood probably of $5 million. Depends on where it goes. It could be a little less, it could be a little bit more. We've already done a lot of work necessary to implement this. This testing facility could be operating by the end of the year, really. I'm not sure about the funding sequence, but it's available to go. It would have a major impact, I believe, on environmental air quality around our areas, just as 40 areas. And then if this testing facility proves the technology, I believe it will be rapidly deployed throughout the Chicago region. Okay, how's that? Thank you.
Reggie, I was just going to give you the virtual hook, so I heard you were winding
very good.
down. So again, to the mentee, and if we could maybe ask you to click a little quicker so everybody has a chance to present. So same questions here for the last mile project. Okay. 10-second warning here on the voting. Again, feeling my time window close here a little bit for everybody to fairly present. So, okay, good feedback. Thank you. Next question. What are the benefits to your community, the region, disadvantaged environmental justice communities? Okay, 10 more seconds. And next question about competitiveness. Few more seconds here to vote. Okay, and then the last one, the stoplight here. Right, about 30 responses. So excellent. Thank you for that. So just to keep things moving, thank you so much, Reggie, for that presentation. And we are saving the results, but again, it's only for kind of discussion purposes. Matt Larson, if I could ask you to introduce yourself, your project, and you don't have slides, so we are going to just spotlight you as speaker. Hey there.
Thanks, Edith, and everyone for attending today. I'm Matt Larson. I'm the Executive Director of the Wheaton Sanitary District, located here in Wheaton. Where I will be presenting, we do have some other wastewater folks on the call, specifically Karen Clemente, who is the Executive Director of the Fox Metro wastewater facility in Aurora, and Amy Underwood, who has the same title at the Downers Grove, the Downers facility in Downers Grove. So we do have a couple of folks on here, and they're both been working together on this as a team with me and others in the wastewater community. First, I want to start out with wastewater has always been solely focused on the environment. Our mission and goals are to treat dirty water that comes to our facilities and discharge it into the nearby streams and rivers, making those fishable, swimmable, wadeable, you name it. So at the forefront, just want to reinforce that our sanitary districts and water reclamation facilities are solely focused on the environment. So more on the project itself. Most larger wastewater treatment facilities produce biogas. And this biogas is a mixture of a number of gases, but the majority of it is methane. 50 to 60% of it is methane. And methane is what is natural gas. Unfortunately, most of our facilities either completely waste this gas by flaring it, or we don't fully utilize the biogas. Some of us utilize it for heating some of our facilities, and some of us use it in cogeneration engines to make electricity. But the vast majority of this biogas, unfortunately, is just flared. And as I told my wastewater colleagues the other day, when I took my job at the Wheaton Sanitary District, I had my 2 young boys here, and I showed them the flare, and they asked what it was. And I said, well, we're wasting our biogas. And they were completely, it really bothered them that, they were taking this very useful energy source and not wasting it. So one of my personal goals has been to find a better way to utilize this energy source. The project specifically, there's been a number of wastewater facilities looking at renewable natural gas in the last several years. And what is renewable natural gas? Renewable natural gas is taking the biogas created at wastewater treatment facilities, cleaning and purifying it up to natural gas pipeline standards, and then injecting it into the natural gas pipelines. This provides a 100% offset of the fossil fuel that is used to produce normal natural gas. So there's tremendous greenhouse gas reductions. And I know earlier Edith had shown a couple of the slides about the regional climate plan. And while, yes, this is water and wastewater, I think this also fits in the decarbonizing energy sources bucket. This is producing a renewable energy source. So I think we need to think a little broader than just water, wastewater. This is decarbonizing an energy source because we are basically providing a 100% offset of natural gas that would otherwise be used. Specifically, the grant funds would be used for 3 main components for this project. One, to install the gas cleaning equipment at the different wastewater facilities that are part of this project. 2, to provide the connection from the wastewater treatment facilities to the nearest natural gas pipeline, which is capable of accepting this renewable natural gas. And the third major component is metering and monitoring equipment. The natural gas pipeline companies are very cautious of what type of gas gets into their system. So they require very extensive and sophisticated monitoring equipment to make sure the gas that we're producing meets their standards. Then obviously we need to monitor and meter the quantity of gas that we're producing. There's a number of wastewater treatment facilities in the Chicagoland area that have been talking about doing this. And there are a couple of different models that we're looking at. One is a regional model where a couple of wastewater treatment facilities would serve as regional hubs or injection points for this natural gas. And one has already been identified, the Fox Metro wastewater facility in Aurora. And they're actually already underway in the design and planning of such a facility. But other regional hubs could also be identified, potentially maybe in the Elgin type area or somewhere farther north. The other, and then what would happen is the other wastewater facilities would transport their renewable natural gas to these regional hubs. A caveat or another setup would be is we'd have regional hubs, but also potentially some of the individual wastewater plants would just directly connect into the nearest natural gas pipeline. There are limitations on how much gas these pipelines can take. So while we can have regional hubs, at some point, the regional hubs can only inject so much gas into the existing natural gas pipelines. So we need to be strategic on that. We'd also be strategic to address the low income and disadvantaged communities where these regional hubs could be located. In terms of the drivers for this project, as I already mentioned, this would decarbonize an energy source, and it obviously fits in with managing water and wastewater sustainably. There is no other current funding mechanism for these types of projects, which is really, really unfortunate. But we feel this is the CPRG grant is a wonderful funding source for this type of project. Like I said, because we're not aware of any other funding sources out there. This type of project is self-sustaining. While the initial capital from the grant would be to install some of the initial facilities, there are environmental attributes similar to those with solar panels or SRECs. They're called RINs, or Renewable Identification Numbers. And these provide an ongoing revenue stream to help with the ongoing system operations and maintenance. And I think the RINs could even produce surplus revenue beyond just the O&M. But in big picture, this project is very self-sustaining because of the revenue stream from the RINs that doing renewable natural gas would provide. And this project is definitely shovel ready. As I mentioned earlier, Karen Clemente and the Fox Metro Water Reclamation Facility are already into a design on this. At my facility, we've done all the planning for this. So these projects could all be implemented definitely within the 5-year window and probably even much, much sooner. The different wastewater facilities have been chatting. In a nutshell, there's folks like DeKalb, Downers Grove, Glen Bard, and Glen Ellen, the MWRD wastewater plant in Hanover Park. As I mentioned, Fox Metro in Aurora, Fox River Water Reclamation in Elgin. DuPage has a facility in Woodridge, and then potentially some other communities, Joliet, Elmhurst, just to name a few. So there's a number of facilities that are all potentially eligible and would be interested in this type of project. Right now, we're evaluating where's the best fit for these types of projects. Is it a wastewater only coalition, or is it working with another one of the coalitions that's already been assembled? And obviously, we want to do what's best for the overall region and our stakeholders. So potentially there could be some type of scoring mechanism put together to see which type of project a wastewater only coalition or part of another coalition is more likely to get funding. In terms of the funding amounts, each facility, depending on the model we look at, probably needs between $5 to $20 million to fully fund all the capital expenses to put this project in place. So it's very scalable. Depending on the number of facilities that participate, it obviously just scales up from there. So just shooting off the cuff right now, we could probably be somewhere in the $50 to $100 million range. But that's very flexible depending on the number of facilities that are part of this, and then what exactly we include in the grant. With that, that kind of ends my prepared remarks here. Definitely willing to take any questions. Like I said, we also have Karen Clemente on the phone here, and I think I saw Amy Underwood in the attendees, and definitely interested in any feedback and comments and questions anybody has.
Matt, if we can multitask, if I could just keep the group moving, we can go ahead and get some feedback for you here. And if anyone has questions in the chat, thank you for bringing a team who can answer the questions in the chat. Or anyone with a burning question who can also vote and ask questions. Feel free to raise your hand, and Mayor Burns, if you can help with the hand raise would be great.
I'm going to try and ask a question at the same time as answering. Is there anything else that can be done with the methane besides burning it or flaring it? Or I guess that's the same thing, but recovering it and putting it in a pipeline versus just flaring it, because methane is so harmful in terms of climate emissions.
Yes, putting it into the pipeline is probably the highest revenue source of this biogas, but there are other uses. One other use is basically burning it in boilers at the treatment facilities to produce heat, whether to heat buildings or to heat some of our process tanks. This methane is actually produced in anaerobic digesters, and those digesters need to be heated to about 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So right now, a number of our facilities use this biogas to heat these digesters to 100 degrees, but we produce more methane than we need for heating. Another use of the methane is to produce electricity. A couple facilities in the Chicagoland area, specifically the Glen Bard plant in Glen Ellen and Lombard, the Downers Grove plant in Downers Grove, and then the facility in DeKalb, take this biogas and put it into engines that basically produce and make electricity. There are benefits and pros and cons from using it to make electricity, as I'm sure those people can attest to, but those are the current other uses of this gas. And I should say, I didn't in my comments, renewable natural gas is being done by other facilities in other parts of the country. So this is not a new novel idea. Other parts of the country are definitely ahead of us. But the one key thing by using renewable natural gas, this provides 100% capture of this biogas. If you're using it for other sources, whether it's cogen to make electricity or using it to use for building heat, not all the gas is used. So this project provides a 100% capture of the biogas, which I think is very important, especially from a greenhouse gas emission reduction standpoint.
Yeah, my concern is that it's addressing the symptom rather than the problem. Perhaps there's, I don't know, the symptom is that we're producing it at all.
Can you expand on what you mean by the symptom?
I don't know if there's some other way to treat the sewage so that we don't end up with methane. But the production of the methane to begin with, to me, is the problematic part rather than figuring out what to do with it at the end. Does
Yeah,
that make sense?
yeah, I understand. Yes, and as a wastewater expert, somebody with advanced degrees in wastewater who's been in the industry for 20 years, this is actually a natural process. Wastewater treatment basically just takes what happens in nature and condenses it into a smaller environment. So methane's already being produced. If we were to put our wastes all into a river or a lake, essentially the same thing would happen. Bacteria would decompose that waste and produce methane. So this is a very natural process. This isn't a process that we're creating on our own. This happens just naturally in nature. So there's really no other way. We're going to produce this methane no matter what. And if you're going to produce it no matter what, you better, in my opinion, make the most beneficial use of this methane. And actually, not to get way out there, but there has been talk of right now, most of the wastewater treatment processes are aerobic. And there's been talk of making them more anaerobic, which is more energy efficient, but it also produces methane. So yeah, I know that's one of the comments that people have made. Is there a way to avoid this methane? But that's really not even an option.
I can keep us moving. Karen has a question.
Yeah, I saw
No,
Karen
let's-
and Christy had her hand up as
Yeah,
well.
we are running out of time. Can you do
Okay.
it in chat, or Karen, do you need to say
I mean,
something?
look, Karen, I'm sure can add on to what I said. So I think it'd be important if Karen at least
Yeah.
could share her thought.
Sure, go ahead. Oops, you're muted, Karen.
We are going to be doing this at Fox Metro, so I just did want to chime in on one thing. Is there is only about 15 of these nationwide with wastewater facilities and none in Illinois. So this would be the first and only in Illinois until we scaled it up and put these other regional hubs in. So I think that's noteworthy for the group.
Thank you. Sorry to be rushing people along here, but we do want to try to finish on time. So excellent. Thank you for that presentation. And if we could turn it over to Kane County, and Kane County, please keep it a little briefer than maybe originally discussed. We're running out of time.
Good morning, I'm Sarah Henshaw. I will keep it very brief. Mavis Bates and Chris Murphy jumped on this immediately, and we've sent out around 400 emails, and kind of at the moment we have some folks involved, Batavia, Will County, DuPage, Naperville, and the list goes on. So right now, Chris Murphy is kind of spearheading our grant writing process. So I will turn it over to her to give you some information about our coalition.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm going to share some slides here real quick from our most recent meeting last Friday. So what we've been talking about is a lot of these project ideas that we've been talking about today. I'll get into that in a minute, but we're also talking about greater plan ideas. So this would cover all the communities within the 4 counties, over 2 million residents. We're talking about how we can ask for money for group buys to incentivize some of the technology we want to see. Also, how we can affect hard to adopt sectors like multifamily, and also low income and disadvantaged. So you think about how many EV chargers have you seen at a multifamily building? They don't have solar on, that kind of thing. Rebates, electric landscape and snow removal, that's been very popular. So can we expand some of those programs that are already going on within certain communities? Also, can we convert equipment so that way we're not just adding to the pile of waste at the landfill? And of course, all of this has to go along with education and outreach. We need to target, we need to provide education, why we're doing this, the benefits of electrification, also all the financial incentives that are available already out there. And then kind of moving on to some of our budget examples we've been talking about, we need to quantify the emissions reductions with these projects. So we're looking for measurable impacts, how much renewable energy you'll be generating with the solar system, how many how much gasoline that you will not use if you switch to electric because you have a charger. Is that being run off the grid or off of solar? And for buildings, the reduction in electricity and gas usage when you weatherize or switch over to renewables and electric equipment. So we've been gathering this information. This is kind of an example of what we've put out to the to all the communities that we're talking with to gather their information to provide to us, because we want to be able to provide that ballpark number to EPA before February 1st. So here's just an example of a solar project on a building, a municipal building. And so we're looking at how much annual electricity we're going to generate. We have these costs broken down by the fiscal year. We're also looking at what year is this going into service and what other incentives are there to help pay for this. So we're showing the need for this money. So there's a lot of federal direct pay, state programs, those kinds of things. So we're breaking all those numbers out to show this. This will be in our detailed budget. And then we're doing the calculations for emissions reductions based on the EPA calculators. So just kind of showing that a quick example. Here's a quick example with weatherizing a building. What we're looking for here is some of those breakdowns, like how much is insulation, how much is windows, here's geothermal, because we want to quantify this enough so EPA understands what we want to do, but also if they deem one item ineligible, they can strike that line and partially fund the project rather than saying no to the entire project. So that's kind of the reasoning behind that. Like I said, we're quantifying those incentives that exist, federal, so direct pay, as well as other grants that are out there. You may have heard of a lot of EV grants that are out there. So we need to show that we're using those first, and then we still have a need for this money. And state of Illinois has a number of grants and rebates and other programs like SREX for solar, community-driven community solar. So, we're making sure everybody has that information so they can quantify their projects there. And that is it from me right now. I will turn it over to Mavis.
Thank you. I want to add that we consider that we are offering the Big Tent Coalition here. We are trying to create a transformational and regional proposal. Our priorities of energy, buildings, and transportation will create a large greenhouse gas reduction. And we are welcoming new partners, including wastewater, landscaping equipment, and trying to create a competitive bid to the EPA. We feel like our proposal is good for low income and disadvantaged. The rebates and incentives will go out to a lot of people, and everything should be doable in 5 years. So we think we've got a good proposal, the Big Tent proposal. Please let us know if you'd like to join us. If the EPA is only going to give out 2 awards for the metropolitan statistical area of Chicago, then we think ours is offering a big one, the Big Tent, that everybody can join. Thanks.
Thank you, Mavis. Okay, I'm going to move through voting a little more quickly, please. Quick click. Give us your feedback so we can maybe hit at least 20 responses. Next slide for feedback. Project benefits. Next slide. On project competitiveness.
Edith, while you're waiting, can I answer one of the questions in the chat?
Sure.
There was a question about why Cook County wasn't included. And I'd say that is just because we thought Cook County would go for their own proposal, but we would be very welcoming to have Cook County join us.
And our last speaker will be Cook County and City of Chicago. So great. Yeah, I have a bit of an apologies. I'm not sure the stoplight is resetting, but it's at 0 when I put it up there. So I take the results with a grain of salt here. We'll download and review. Okay. Thank you so much to the Kane County Collaborative for that project. So next up, like I'm not clicking through enough screens here. Let me also, so the next project idea is ours from the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus. And I slapped together very quick slides. So let me just do this to share thoughts here. Okay, that's sharing correctly. So the idea would be to get small 2-cycle and 4-cycle engines used in landscape out of circulation and replace them with cleaner sources, most likely electric landscape equipment. And briefly, small gasoline engines are a source of nitrous oxide or NOx, which is a greenhouse gas. It's 263 times, if EPA wants to correct me on that, more powerful of a global warming potential than CO2, which, like methane, which was the wastewater project, it's a different gas, but of great significance. There's a lot of other pollutants that come out of the exhaust of the small gasoline engines. They're largely unregulated, so you don't have to go for an emissions test for your small equipment. They're everywhere. They're loud, and that comes into a little bit of the momentum for doing this. And a buyback program would be comparatively inexpensive, meaning that the benefits for replacing landscape equipment could benefit a lot of people. We could achieve a lot of replacements, and we'll get some measurements on how effective that will be. The other thing from a disadvantaged communities perspective is that there are equipment operators who are professionals that suffer long-term exposure from the use of this equipment. Professionals are often out during the summer, the season, 12 hours a day. And so they're the back end on these equipment for long hours. And so there's an interest in mitigating the risk. I look at this project as scalable with 3 possible components to it. And I don't know that someone asked me, can we do all 3? And I don't think so. I think they're very different. I think one possible approach, and these are somewhat prioritized for me, is the commercial landscape industry. The equipment is highly used. So this is in use for, I think it's 460 hours a year compared to, I don't remember the number for a homeowner, but if you cut your grass or blow leaves, there's not a lot of time on your equipment. So highly used. They're on the road all day for the commercial operators, which makes recharging challenging. Most batteries won't last for that period of time. You need a big bank of batteries or some interim charging and some capacity when you get back to your shop. The landscape industry has told us there are equipment performance challenges, that the electric equipment simply doesn't have the power they need to get through some of the heavy duty work and the seasonal nature of their work. Another possible approach would be to just move on residential equipment, which we've already spoken to the solid waste agencies, potentially about cooperating for a buyback program. If you think about the big collection days with electronics equipment, they could be pressed into service to collaborate on a buyback program. We potentially could involve municipalities in that as well. Final sector would be the public sector landscape maintenance, which would include park districts, municipalities, and other agencies that do landscape equipment. They have relatively easy to implement, public sector, often early adopters, and they've sort of got the interim moderate equipment use. They also have the solving solution charged for. I'm not sure that that it has the same broad benefits that I'm hoping for, but it's a possible solution. The idea would be that there would be a voucher program. This would not be unlike the Illinois Alliance for Clean Cities when it was Chicago Clean Cities Coalition did a $13 million voucher buyback or voucher program for electric trucks. The Mayor's Caucus actually back in the day did a program with DERA where we did a buyback program. So there's precedents. There's air quality districts in California that are doing buybacks. The idea would be that old equipment would be destroyed and turned in, the results measured, and the results over the region tracked. The other thing I wanted to throw out there is there's a growing movement towards leaf blower bans, and there was a very robust group of Lake County municipalities that studied this, worked with the Illinois Landscape Contractors Association to consider bans. And so there's a few communities that have already banned leaf blowing equipment, which is ostensibly the loudest equipment source. It's 2-cycle, it's dirty, and a lot of other communities on the North Shore are peeling back or limiting their use. Potential partners, just going through this really quickly, I've spoken with all of the groups that are not italicized. So the good news was that I've spoken to LADCO, which is the Lake Michigan Air Directors Consortium that has data on emissions that we could use to track this. So I'm going to move right away into the Menti, and I'll take Mayor Booker's question. Okay, so this is voting on
Okay,
the landscape
yeah.
buyback program.
Edith, I've reset the Menti, so it should be ready to go.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm not sharing it. Thank you. Mayor Booker, go ahead.
Good morning. Hey,
Good
so
morning.
my question is, has there been any discussion or conversation around actually the municipality not having this opportunity, or on like a yes and on top of having the municipality be a part of it, also having like our third party contractors being a part of it? Because I'm looking at the conversations that we've been having is more so with looking at union contracts, consistent negotiations, and keeping the maintenance of these different pieces of equipment. What would it look like if, say, 5 or 10 even surrounding communities all said, this is the one vendor that we're going to use for various public work operations? Because when we look at like even something as simple as like the tree cutting, these tree cutting companies' contracts have risen 3 times as much as they were even 5 years ago. And they're blaming it on staffing, they're blaming it on salaries and equipment. So what for some of these pieces of equipment, every municipality does not need them every day, right? Some of them don't even need them every month. They just need them as a project-based oriented thing. A bucket truck is 250 grand, right? I mean, what if we did have it where you were able to partner with third-party vendors to get some of this stuff too? Because a lot of times coming now, we're opting to outsource versus adding additional staff.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. I think that's a great add on that. And I think some of the policy components are really interesting related to just some of the regulations. So if the funds were to flow to the landscape sector, the industry sector, I think that's one way we could show collaboration with local governments is to look at those contractors. Okay, so apologies for whizzing through that really quickly, and thank you for your votes there. Before we close out, I'm really happy to see all that chat going on. Could I turn it over to Jared from the City of Chicago and Deb from Cook County, who just wanted an opportunity to talk about what they're thinking about?
Deb, you want to go, or should I jump in?
I should say agreed to talk about this. I actually wanted to have one more conversation on CPRG, but
yeah, so I think it was a bit of a surprise to find myself on the agenda, but that's okay. But I think, and Jared jump in, but I just want folks to know that we are very much trying to go arm in arm so we don't divide up the region and cause a kind of a bad taste with US EPA. I think there are not going to be more than maybe 8 or 10, I think, of the really big grants in the country. We've also reached out to the state of Illinois to see the extent to which we can cooperate with them as well on the overall strategy. I think the name of the game here is going to be picking those things that have the greatest greenhouse gas impact. I think there's probably going to be some transportation things in there. There's probably going to be a focus on energy sources for buildings. We're not at the point where we know where the answer is, but we know we want to work together, and we know we want to get the maximum amount of money into the region. And as I said last week on the Kane County meeting, I haven't really discussed this with Jared, but I think we're very open to other partners in this bid to get the maximum impact projects for the Chicago region in front of the US EPA. So Jared, what did I miss?
No, nothing. So hi, everybody. Jared Pellicicchio. I'm the deputy CSO in Chicago. I would just echo, yeah, what Deb said. I mean, I guess, maybe to just, since we're at the end here, to be very direct. I mean, would Chicago love to have $500 million going just to Chicago? Sure. But we know that's not going to win. And so we're committed to not doing something like that. An application that was just for the city, especially when you get up to those big award tiers. There's no way a city only application or any of us really is probably going to be competitive. We have to work collaboratively. So we've been in conversation with Cook County. Sorry, I know there's multiple counties on here with Cook, with CMAP, with the caucus, and with others, and we welcome discussion amongst everybody. I was certainly listening to all the presentations. I'll leave it with, we want to win for the region, and we know that that's going to require a regional collaborative approach for those big. When I say win, we want to win one of the big awards. I guess it should be clear. And I think there's, from our perspective, there's probably, as Edith said, this is going to be dynamic because there's probably all kinds of permutations. Could there be a big, really collaborative regional application for the largest tier, and then some applications for some of the smaller tiers that are more narrowly scoped? Probably, I'm not the expert on it, but I'm sure there's lots of permutations. But we know those big tiers, it's going to require a regional approach. So we just wanted to make sure that you all knew that's where we were at the city before we closed.
Great.
Oh, Edith, it looks like you're muted. Oh, Edith,
Edith,
you're
you're
still
muted.
muted.
Start over, Edith.
Okay. All right, there we go. Now I'll start over. So thank you for that, and I apologize for having the timing go a little awry towards the end there and having to rush through the end of it. We can stay on for conversations if people want to stay on. If you do have other questions, please put them in the chat. Don't forget to fill out that survey for other project ideas, and we're going to do our very best to do matchmaking and collaborating. So if you need to leave, Christy, let's hold your question and let others go if we want to. Cheryl has a couple of announcements for our next week's meeting, and then Mayor Burns can say goodbye to everybody, and then we'll stay on for those who want to continue to dialogue.
Okay, yes, our next meeting is Tuesday, February 20th, and I put the link in the chat to register for that. The likely topic is IRA incentives, rebates, and direct pay. And just one more announcement in the chat is that the RTA is looking for people to serve on the RTA Citizens Advisory Board. I had emailed a few people about that. They're especially looking for people from Kane, DuPage, Lake, and Will. And so more information about that is in the chat, and you can contact them at communications@rtachicago.org. Thank you.
Mayor Burns,
Deborah,
anything?
Deborah Stone, could I have your email and phone number? Do you mind?
It's in the chat.
It's in the chat.
Oh, in the chat? Okay, I saved the chat, thanks.
Again, those of you who wish to stick around, you're invited to do so. Those of you who need to leave, we understand, and we thank you very much for participating this morning. Edith, despite your proclamation that this was going to be dynamic with air quotes, I thought this was a wonderful session. There was extraordinary opportunity, as everyone has stated, to do things well together, and I'm looking forward to advancing that. So again, happy Tuesday, folks. Stay warm, be safe, be good, and I'm sure we'll all see you again soon.
I'm happy to take questions. Thank you, Mayor Burns. Happy to take questions. And we can talk about some projects that kind of haven't made the cut or weren't presented today. I don't want to say haven't made the cut. So, because there's some chat in there. Christy, did you have a question? You want to? Happy to take it now. Oops, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I want just a little greater insight into submitting any proposals. Are you hoping to screen those before they go to, to the appropriate response site, or how is that working so that we can potentially coalesce as a region and advance a couple projects? see where there's partnership opportunities, et cetera.
So I'm going to answer for the caucus and welcome either CMAP folks or Cook County or Chicago to also answer that. So that's what's a little, there's no one person saying that's the project going forward. What we hope is that if there are entities, take for example, I think the wastewater project is a really good one that's got a cohesive coalition. They've got a straightforward collaboration, and it's a very unique project. I think they should go forward alone. So we're having those kinds of conversations to encourage participants to go ahead and apply. If there are things like the building decarbonization one that maybe need to have a little bit more discussion, we're hoping to encourage that. Doesn't mean we can that anyone cannot apply. In other words, if there's a coalition that says let's go forward and apply for this, it's possible to do that. We are hoping to be competitive. So the best we can say is that with CMAP, we're trying to continue to have these conversations, including in collaboration with Illinois EPA to try to find out what their project submissions are. And then as Deb and Jared have said, they're really interested in a very high level working with agencies. Jared, are you still on the call? Do you want to talk more about the sister agency conversation as far as submitting?
I don't see Jared on the call anymore.
Jared has dropped off. Just so everyone, because the slides you didn't get a chance to see are some of the projects that didn't succeed in moving to this level of having a conversation that for reasons didn't seem to be very to make the cut. And one of those was a conversation I just had last week with 5 or 6 transportation planners on the phone, and I had contacted them and said in that database of project submissions, we didn't see a single one on active transportation. What do we got out there? And all of the transportation planners says they don't see it as viable in 5 years, that it's not possible. Jared, if I can share with him, he had a conversation, Jared Palachicchio from the city had conversations with the sister agencies, including transit, and for them, $500 million isn't nearly enough. So is there going to be a project that comes from RTA or CTA, or are they going to advance the Metro one? A lot of the parties are taking having those conversations on their own. We're just hoping to coordinate. There will be multiple project submissions from the region. I'm not sure that's straightforward enough, but.
I've got my hand up.
Sure, go ahead, Mavis.
Okay, I wanted to say about the, I'm trying to lower my hand, can't multitask, there you go. About the landscaping project, I think that would be a great one to merge into the community collaboration projects. I feel like, and Evanston is looking for a partner. Evanston, we'd love to have you as a partner. We've got Aurora as a partner. This is the big tent. I think that's part of the transformational part, is bringing in so many different partners at the same time. So, but landscaping could come in under community. We could work on that.
And if I can respond to the building decarbonization one, that was an idea that was submitted by a couple of players in the survey. So the desire is to invest heavily in low and moderate income for building decarbonization, energy efficiency, and electrification. And what we found is there are many projects out there right now, so it sort of fails the innovative test. There's also lots of funding sources available for it. Doesn't mean it's not a good idea, but it may not be the best approach to go forward. And I hope that, again, other organizations are free to do that. But when we talked to some of the key partners, we found out how many low-income decarbonization programs, and then what the kind of the cost benefit is. It didn't seem like this was the best grant funding opportunity for it. Sarah, go ahead.
Hi, we really liked that landscaping idea too. We have done just a small amount of homework about instead of buyback program, actually take back, convert to electric, because that can be done. And I didn't know if anyone knew if that was cost effective. I just haven't looked far enough into it yet. If that's more cost effective instead of buying back and then destroying, would that be feasible to convert and give back?
I failed to call out that Elgin has a small buyback program. Tom, you're on the call if you want to acknowledge that. And then Naperville is looking at a buyback program. But that Ben Mielness from Naperville also worked on the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus. When we had under clean air counts before I started, we had a lawnmower buyback program or a gas can buyback program. Gary, go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to build on some of Mavis's comments and also Jared's and Debbie's, just about the thinking here about the big swing, right? You know, is there an opportunity for the Mayor's Caucus, for all the counties that are on the call that are interested in moving this forward, Mavis's project, and then other organizations to really decide on a project that would integrate, you know, all the things that people are talking about here, interested in, all of the EV infrastructure and fleet vehicle conversion, you know, the renewable energy projects. And some of these, you know, I think you accurately stated some of the projects that were presented sound like standalone, but I just want to kind of push the conversation on a larger regional collaboration and submission that could sort of put all of these pieces in one proposal and submit it.
Thank you for that. There's a lot of strategy and speculating here in terms of what might win for the EPA. You know, what we're hearing from them is that they want large transformative projects. They have specifically said that this isn't the place for small one at a time projects. It does, and the Kane County group is making the case that, but collaborating on these small projects that are not funded elsewhere could be large and transformative. So hard to say, is it going to be competitive to put in smaller projects and have, you know, if the landscape equipment goes forward as a single project, is that going to be more competitive or not under the Kane County project? Harder really to speculate there.
We are adding in the group buys for many different areas, which makes it more regional and transformational and good for low income and disadvantaged.
And just to jump in, so you know, Sarah has been arranging these meetings and reaching out to communities now for probably about 5 months, and some of the feedback we've received from the communities that have been coming to these meetings is that ordinance and large policy changes aren't really supported, mainly because, you know, not everybody is home rule, so that makes it difficult for us to put something like that in there. We are looking at doing something like a voluntary program, like a voluntary energy benchmarking program, because then that is more doable. So just to think about that, what we can and can't do with policy. We can encourage people adopt the stretch codes, but will they at the end of the day? So that's kind of where, you know, we've looked at what other communities in the country have done, Ann Arbor, Denver, some of the West Coast communities, and we've kind of looked at what we think might be successful here. So just kind of keep that in mind. There's a lot of great ideas, but what can we actually do and get everybody to participate in? Because everyone will have to sign a memo of agreement and participate in the program. So we've talked a lot about projects because we need to gather those numbers, but we really are starting to talk a lot more about the greater plan and policy and greater community-wide effort that would impact all the residents. So just wanted to throw that out there.
And that's a very helpful approach from a staff perspective, because as I've learned in my couple of years here, you know, we can't always advance things that might be great for the community without support from our elected officials. So not to say they're not doing a great job, but I think it's good to have an opportunity to be able to move on something that can be impactful. So thanks to the Kane Group for the work so far.
Well, any suggestions before we go on the process? So, you know, Christy asked the question, what's next? I mean, any suggestions on how how to organize this. And do remember, before you assign anything to the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, or, you know, particularly, we have a PCAP that is due on March 1st. So our ability to lead and organize on this is challenged, just because it's quite the stretch. CMAP is doing a great job with coordinating, particularly with some of the big players like the transit agencies. They're also working on the PCAP, and they have said that they will not put in an application. So is that something that, you know, great to see City of Chicago, Kane County, and Cook County working towards, encourage some of the other. Matt, let me just ask your project. Do you have a qualified entity that one of the wastewater agencies that could be a direct applicant and get behind your coalition?
Yes.
Great. Okay. And just to be transparent, the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus is interested in the landscape one, and thinking that we would apply independently at this point, just because it would be a regional project. And I think also on the sort of the, like Matt's project, somewhat focused, as opposed to getting behind the Kane County one as a collaborative. But again, big question about strategy there. Any other comments or feedback on what should be aggregated together for this other big tent idea? Any other suggestions on process?
So you are planning on applying for that one as Cook County?
No, as Cook County, no, the landscape equipment, if it's viable as the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus.
Gotcha. Okay.
That would be, that's the thinking right now. We did have, and again, when Ben was a young skipper as an intern at the Mayor's Caucus, we did that with a DERA, Diesel Emissions Reduction Act. And then we can subgrant to the region. We do that now. So we have relationships where we could do that with municipalities. I think it's more straightforward that way.
That's
okay. So again, there's a survey. Please feel free to fill that out. We're still collecting ideas on that. Someone asked us to share it. Let me think about that, because it's kind of raw data right now, and there's projects all over the place. Let me see if we can share that submission. Nobody's submitted the survey with the intention of sharing it with everyone. So let me check with the CMAP folks about that, but that's not a bad suggestion. Okay. Thank you everyone for being with us and for staying on extra time. Really important conversation.
Thank you, everyone, and good luck.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.